Thanks for joining us today on Envisions. I'm Deanne Conrad with Dr. Brian Maher, our superintendent. We are coming up on the end of the school year, and one of the things we talked about early on was the fact that we are trying through our strategic plan to increase our graduation rates, and we were going to have some definitive meetings at each high school to sort of gather up those kids that were close, that we needed to really engage with and move them toward graduation. Talk to us a little bit about how that's been going, what progress we're making, what progress still needs to be made.
Well, you're exactly right. The impetus for this movement came through our strategic plan, where we looked at data in a number of areas. And one area that we looked at and said, we're not good enough there, and that is in the area of graduating our students. Mm-hmm. And as a school district, that one data point is particularly disturbing. So we said, what can we do to make a difference? And I think the best way you can go about improving the graduation rate is to begin to pay attention to every student. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've tried to do. At each of our high school buildings, what we've done is put together a graduation cohort team to look at students who are in peril of not graduating and trying to figure out why, and trying to figure out what can we do to help that student get to that finish line in their K-12 pursuit, which is graduation. We want to make sure that we don't in any way diminish our graduation rigor. Mm-hmm. We're not going to allow them to do less. We're not going to allow them to perform shoddily. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, what can we do to give them a little encouragement, a little nudge, a little cajoling to get across that finish line? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've done is we've had weekly meetings in each of our high schools with a cohort group that's made up of the administrative team and the counselors and many other people as well, but looking at students who again are in peril of not graduating and try to figure out, how do I take an individual approach with that student and get them to that finish line?
So you're actually looking at student A as in a student name and credits earned and where we're at in their learning process. You're looking at student B, you're looking at all of these individual, and when you're talking about getting students across the finish line, it's not like, oh, what can we do with these kids who are in the, have 16 credits. It's actual individual students that you're talking about moving.
Very much so. There are names discussed at every one of those meetings. I go to one meeting a month mm-hmm. for each of the mm-hmm. high schools, so I'm actually can see the work in progress. What I see, the conversations that I hear are student A has a D in Algebra 2 and has 3 assignments missing. Who has a relationship with that student? And usually it's 2 or 3 people. And how are we going to address that issue with that student?
Right down to algebra.
And it'll be in a meeting where we'll talk about 30 or 40 students in a week. Now next week we'll talk about 30 or 40 students again, and maybe 20 of them overlap from last
Sure.
week. But we're constantly working with students. I had a conversation with a teacher who said, we're hearing it about graduation rates. And I don't want this to be about the graduation rates or about an administrative initiative. I want it to be about students. And when I go to those meetings, I see that and I hear that. It is about this student getting to the finish line and being able to have this student get through the rigor that is high school academia mm-hmm. and getting that diploma. We're not going to compromise our standards. We're going to do everything we can to get that student to that finish line. I'm so proud of our principals, our counselors, social workers, and a number of other people who are really involved in this process. Ultimately, it comes down to those teachers, but hopefully what we have right now is a lot of support for what that teacher is doing in that classroom. Mm-hmm. We work with things like lack of motivation, and you might think mm-hmm. that's the overarching theme, but the fact of the matter is, when you hear the stories of the individual students who have become homeless, who have mom and dad going through a bitter divorce, who have just lost a loved one to an untimely death, mm-hmm. the number of things that our students deal with that really impact their motivation or their vision for what their future can be. Those are the issues that we're dealing with. While in the end it's going to be nice to talk to people about our improved graduation rate, and I really believe we'll see that, really it's about
Each one of those.
each individual student, and when you add up each one of those individual students, maybe we move the needle 3% or whatever it ends up being. But it's truly about students getting that diploma who otherwise wouldn't have received that diploma without the hard work and the heart of a teacher that our principals and counselors and social workers and many, many other people have to get those individuals to that finish line.
Rally around them to help them get to that point.
Very much so.
Well, that's great work that I'm certain we'll see the outcome of. We look forward to seeing what that does, and we know that whatever it is, we'll continue to work hard every single year to help students graduate, no matter where they are.
Without a doubt.
Well, thanks for joining us today on Envision.